Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Majority Show. My name is Mark Devlin, and you are watching Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show, going out live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm the host, Mark Devlin, as I said, and unfortunately, Mary can't be with us tonight. She has COVID, so I'm joined tonight with David Griffiths, who's a regular contributor, and also Allan Sutherland from Scotland Matters, as his special guest. So we have a lot to cover tonight, guys. So what are you going to be talking about?
Good evening, everyone. I will be exposing yet another in a continuing series of big nationalist lies.
Okay, and what have you got for us, Allan?
Well, you asked me to talk about, we had a public meeting a few weeks ago at Scotland Matters up in Aberdeen, so I'll talk a little bit about that for you. And also, we were laid up with COVID. I was in Germany, my wife's German, we were up in Germany for a couple of weeks and ended up with COVID. So we ended up watching a lot of TV you wouldn't normally not watch, including a parliamentary debate on independence last week, which really opened my eyes in terms of just how much the game is raised by our politicians down in Westminster in terms when it comes to dealing with SNP in a debate. Very good, I thought.
And we'll all be talking about Sturgeon's COP27 Jolly. And
of course, we have Zoomer of the Week.
Zoomer of the Week. So all that and much more in just a bit. Right, so welcome back to the Majority Show, Scotland's #1 anti-nationalist show. As usual, a huge shout out to our donors who put their cash into getting this show set up and who contribute on a weekly basis to paying for running costs and so on. If you can help with the running costs, we would very much appreciate that. You can also buy a t-shirt, we have here, or a mug from our store, all at reasonable prices, and a little bit from each sale will help the show.
As always, we would like to thank our friends at UK Union Voice and at United Against Separation for supporting the show by letting us broadcast directly to their Facebook pages, from where I know many of you are watching right now.
And I have an obligatory message that you should subscribe to YouTube for alerts. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we can get more exposure on the YouTube algorithm. So please do that if you can.
Indeed. And as a little reminder, wherever you are, please like, share, comment, tell friends, extend the reach of the show at the click of one button.
That's right. Although Mary isn't on the camera tonight, she'll be handling the comments, even though she has not do well with the COVID. But so that's the lengths we will go to keep the show going. The show must go on, as they say. But please keep your comments short, and we'll try and put as many comments as possible. Coming up, David's going to be doing the big Nationalist LIE of the week, and an ongoing series. And Alan's going to be talking about how the House of Commons, where there's actual real debate about Scottish independence in the House of Commons. And of course, we'll have Zoomer of the Week. All that and much more in just a second. Right, but first we'll say get to know Allan a little bit more. Of course, you've been on the show before. Allan's the founder of Scotland Matters, active anti-nationalist group based out of Aberdeen. They've been very active the past few years. We're doing billboards, letter writing campaigns, and many other activities, events, including, in fact, you recently had an event in Aberdeen. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, we used to, before COVID, we did quite a few public meetings. I find it's a good way of getting people actually in a room together, and they all seem to enjoy hearing other people. It's a bit like a Alcoholics Anonymous for pro-UK people, And we usually get guest speakers, and over the time we've had Willie Rennie, Brian Wilson, quite a number of MSPs and MPs, Andrew Bowie, and so we hadn't had one for a while. So we thought we'd start off again in Aberdeen, where we where we started off as an organisation, and we had it in the Aberdeenshire Cricket Club. So we sent out about I don't know, a few hundred invites, and 70 people registered, which is more than normal, and about 55 turned up.
Right,
and
that's
a couple of people came up from Central Belt, in fact, for it.
Yes,
and we had Barney Crockett, who was the Labour Lord Provost of Aberdeen. He was one of our speakers. George Carr, who's a senior Conservative councillor, used to be the chairman of Aberdeenshire Councillors, really good guy. And Michael Turvey from the Lib Dems, who not a lot of people heard of, but very impressive speaker and what he was saying and the way he puts things across. And also Douglas Cousin, who was one of the senior sheriffs in Aberdeen for a long number of years. And in fact, Dorothy Bain, the Lord Advocate, was his student when he was teaching at university. Really engaging speaker, and he's written a few articles about the Scottish government's handling legal policy. So that was the people that were there.
Was there a general theme to it?
Well, yeah, the theme was I don't know if you saw it, Mark. The meme we did, which was a picture of Sturgeon looking. It was off one of the Mercurius videos. So Sturgeon looking sideways at the camera, and it was headed "New King, New Prime Minister, same old SNP."
All right, okay.
Except that we're now one Prime Minister beyond that. That was when Liz Truss was in situ.
Okay, yes.
So really, what it was mainly about, I wanted it to be about what we'd been doing in the last few years. A lot of people weren't aware of some of the things, but it started off with a thing saying 52% yes. That was one of these surveys, and most of us are complacent that we think that because we all are against it, and everybody we talk to are against it, or we do battle with some of the people on Twitter and Facebook and all this, but that most people in Scotland want independence, and we don't want independence, and I don't think we actually know that. Just speak to somebody, your neighbours on the street. They either are ambivalent or assume it's going to happen, or they know very little about why they're against it. They don't actually know the issues, and that's been our mission, and it's something that you won't do just on Facebook. So we try to do it with these billboards, as you know, Mark. You were involved with that as well, and we actually had an ad van going around Aberdeen that week. That was the weekend of the SNP conference. Okay. And we played one of the Mercurius Great Pretender videos.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Posted a video. So we had it at the conference, then we had it around one of the retail parks on a Sunday morning, and I was videoing the van in front of Tesco's, and this chap came up to me and started talking to me in the background, like into my ear, and saying, "This is great. We're needing more of this. This has made my day." And there was other people coming up as well saying that. And in fact, they've got some kind of sensors on the vans, and 21,000 people saw that van that day.
Right.
So these are ways of getting
around. I think it's important to reach people who are not on Twitter. I mean, we spend a lot of time, of course, on Twitter and Facebook and so on. But, a lot of people aren't on there. And even actually a lot of the people who are on Twitter don't even see the posts all the time as well, right? So so it's quite hard to get a message. I say to people, I've been saying this over the past few weeks, that, getting the truth out is not just a one-off event. It's a process. You have to really work people and work people across all different types of media and all different types of groups as well.
I mean, look at these, Chris Deeran wrote an article in the New Statesman about the Indecurious. And this theory, I think we all know that 30% of people in either end won't shift their views. They're going to vote either for or against, but the 40% in the middle are the ones we need to tackle.
Yes, that's very true.
So
I don't know if there is such really a thing as indecurious. I think, as you say, there's a lot of apathy, and there's a lot of people who are, who just go with the flow, as it were. And so our job, to some extent, is to make that flow change a little bit, right?
Yeah, right. Well, there's 1.7 million people. If that's 40%, that's 1.7 million people in Scotland that are arguably indecurious. And the other statistic I said again, I'll say it in this show as well, 2 million people voted no in 2014. And there's never been more than 1.5 million voted for pro-UK sides in total since then. So 500,000 voters have disappeared. And if these half a million were voting, the SNP would have lost every single election. And the both in terms of vote count and in terms of seats. And that's got to be our objective, try and get these people back, especially if there's going to be a de facto referendum in the next election.
It seems unlikely, but well, you know. All right, okay. So
and on that point, though, I mean, Alan, that's a point I've made many times, that there is a large tranche of people who've just disappeared from the political radar. They haven't all died, not at all. Yeah. We felt the necessity to come out and vote in the independence referendum. They haven't done so since. It's very unlikely they're going to bother, particularly if they're Conservative voters, voting next time either. So that is the very much the target group in Scotland. And I know, Mark, we don't agree here that the next election can be held on the basis of it being a de facto referendum. No election can be. Nonetheless, my counter to that is, if we can manoeuvre a situation so that the pro-UK parties' total votes exceeds the SNP's total votes and the Greens' votes, then Sturgeon will have lost a referendum, a de facto referendum, which she called on her own terms. That would be the end of her. And that's what we have to target.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Anyway, just thought I'd add that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So was the meeting a success? Sorry, I went wrong.
Well, I would say so. I mean, in that a lot of people went a lot. There's about 30 people came that we've never seen before. And they came from, and most of these were people that signed up on our website over the last few years in Aberdeen and came along to it. And we got a lot of good feedback about what we're doing, and just the sort of happiness that people are making an effort, like you're doing in UK Union Voice and Scotland and Union and all that, And also quite a few people actually volunteered to take on some work. I mean, we do it mostly with just 2 or 3 people.
Yes.
And we try and multiply ourselves by Facebook and advertising and billboards and stuff like that. So it was really worth doing, and we're going to do some down in Edinburgh and Glasgow. And actually, out of it as well, there's people down in the Central Belt want to set up a little satellite, as we've got in Greenock with Ian Mackenzie.
Yes, okay, yes. I remember them from before. Very good. All right. Well, we'll talk more about throughout the show there as well. So about that and some other stuff. I want to say that I was, seeing as David's not mentioning it.
Oh yeah, I'll get my cue here. Sorry, Mark,
Mr. Q.
I believe you participated in a debate the other day. Tell us all about it.
Right. Okay. Well, the event was in Edinburgh last Sunday, and I was invited by a guy called Bonnie Prince Bob. I don't know what his real name is. And he invited me after I agreed with a comment that he'd made about I think he's quite, a socialist. And so he basically said that working classes won't get any benefit out of independence. We actually ran a poll about that as well, and of course nobody really thinks that will happen. And he actually says it's an independence vanity project for middle class Munro baggers. No offence to Munro baggers. Funnily enough, one of the last people I was talking to about independence or debating independence was with such a person. But anyway, the theme of the thing was, is the British state in decline? And I was up against 5 other participants and the host who all believed in Scottish independence. The host, Cat Boyd, who actually did a great job. And there was also Craig Murray, who I think we all have heard of or know, and the head of the Scottish Libertarians, Tam Laird, who have the kind of weird stance of supporting independence, much as I'd like to get into that in more detail. But that wasn't the topic. Anyway, some good commentary, and went off on some interesting tangents. My point, I think, overall was the British state is remarkably resilient to change, and while it does need some reforming, it's stronger than certainly what nationalists think. I think it's a bit self-serving, what they say is. In fact, I heard Blackford say that in the debate, the House of Commons debate that we're going to talk about in a wee while. Oh, the British state's a big disaster, and it's terrible, and it's all this terrible stuff. And of course, it suits them, right, to think that and to try and put that depression out. But I think it's far more resilient than they think. And there's some examples, like all the people coming out to support, to show, pay the respects of the Queen and so on, the silent majority that we have. Anyway, video will be out in a few days, and you can make your mind up.
So I have to ask, Mark, is Craig Murray as bonkers in the flesh as he is on social media?
Well, no, he seems very. I mean, he's very nice. If you watch his videos, you'll see he's quite well. He's very well spoken and quite what's the word?
Measured.
Measured, yes, measured. But the problem is that, you know, for example, the article, one of the recent articles was just about let's just declare UDI, and you're like, okay, you're like, no, that's not going to happen, and so I don't know. I mean, he seems very, very smart. He was fairly quiet in the discussion to some extent, knowledgeable but a bit quiet. There were some good inputs from one, I think, a guy called David Jameson, who is a journalist, again a nationalist, and now coming from the socialist side. Now, I didn't really want to pull them up too much, like, you know, socialism isn't nationalism, but some of those things did come up in debate. Wait to see how it comes up. It was quite something to be, because I didn't actually realise that I'd be the only one who was, you know, not pro-UK, but not a nationalist or not supporting independence. So that was a bit of a shocker. Anyway, we'll see it. Coming up, Sturgeon's Sturgeon's Egyptian jolly continues. Plus the big Nationalist LIE of the week and Zoomer of the week will all be coming up in just a few seconds. Right, well, we talked a little bit about this last week. Sturgeon went on a jolly to Egypt, leaving the rest of Scotland in the cold. And it's quite cold. I don't know where you are in Scotland, but I wonder when it will ever stop raining. It seems to be weeks of rain so far. How is it where you are, Alan?
Oh, it's been a nice day today. It's not hot, but it was sunny.
Really? It's just constant rain here. Anyway, so I mean, what's your thoughts, Alan? Just straight into it. What's your thoughts on this Nicola Sturgeon jolly to Egypt?
Well, it's this old attention seeker thing. As Joel Stevenson had a letter in the paper about it today.
Oh, actually, I have done.
You know, if that was Rishi Sunak in England, and he wasn't the Prime Minister or whatever, but you know, if that was an English MP, they'd be getting slated for it. Not an MP, but a regional councillor. I just feel that she gets away with these things, and then to claim that she's the person that invented this reparations argument.
Oh, yes, I heard that actually. She claimed that.
I mean, we've got a page on our website. We did a whole set of memes and research behind it about their environmental record and policy last year, which mostly are failures, and she still gets away with it. You know, they forecast 130,000 jobs by 2020 in 2010, and they've actually got 21,300, and that's an STUC research document, and nobody pulls them up for it.
No. David, do you think she could have gone by Zoom?
100%. I think it was great that she was actually challenged on that specific point. Couldn't you have done it remotely? No, of course not. How do you get selfies remotely? You can't do it, can you? So I'll talk a little bit later about exactly what I think about the whole thing. But really, to me, it's excess. It's just completely unnecessary, and it can only be seen, as are so many other actions taken by the First Minister these days, in terms of her lining up her next role, because she is acting more and more like somebody who realises she's running out of road, and that, I think, is pretty much what she's doing and why she's so determined to be seen there.
Well, it's not as if she doesn't inform for selfies, right?
Yep.
So, you know, here she is. You know, last time, I mean, a big article in the Times, Nicola Sturgeon in sharp focus for fortnight of selfies at COP26, and you know, it's just continuous, this idea that she's going out there and pretending to be a world leader. Yeah. And I mean, who is she actually met? Did you actually meet any world leaders while she was there?
I saw with some women from, I think, Barbados.
Barbados, that's right. Yes. Yep. And then she's been going out. I don't know what happened to Alan. Maybe he's coming back.
Right. had to go out and sneeze. I was really.
Bless you. You
Well,
can
that's
just put it on
okay.
mute.
You can mute yourself, if you want.
I don't want to spread it over the screen.
That's the thing. Maybe you still get the COVID. COVID is still going there. Anyway, she's said she's leading the way with an unparalleled funding towards irreparable loss and damage from climate change. I mean, it's just ridiculous ideas beyond her station.
Quite.
And we have this, what have we got here? Well, meanwhile, she's slashing 133 million from energy efficiency schemes, instead keeping that money for her pretendy embassies. Yeah. One might think that her plan is to save CO2 by having no ferries or no trains in Scotland. It's possible. But many of our, actually, it was quite interesting because we did this. I did this post. It said she's not a world leader; she's a regional administrator. And then Nationalists get so upset about it, like, "Oh no, she's not. She's Nicola. She's really great." I mean, they might think she's God or something like that. But I think I wouldn't say most ordinary people, can't speak for them. I think that, I mean, that is the question actually, David. What do you think? Do you think the ordinary voters see this and actually care?
I've spoken before about what I think some ordinary voters feel. At the height of the COVID, Nicola Sturgeon daily soliloquies, if you remember, when she was giving an address to the nation every single day, I was sitting in a beer garden one time when some bar was open, and I heard an ordinary voter saying, "Well, the thing with Nicola is at least she can understand what she's saying. With Boris, it's all mumbo jumbo." I thought, right, okay, is that it? Is that the extent of the backing for a Scottish person? I think a lot of the support for the SNP is simply the fact that they have a Scottish identity, and that's it. And I think people are blind to the stuff that she does so badly. And I think the subtleties of her not being an invited delegate probably are lost, I'm sorry to say, on the majority of voters in Scotland. And I don't mean that to sound condescending or anything, but I think most people, the view of the people who are, particularly those who are either Indie curious or pro-Indie, as I mentioned earlier, is more or less that, Nicola's there and she's doing a good job for us, and at least she's fighting against the Tories and all this nonsense. So I'm sadly, unfortunately, I don't think it really permeates much when she makes these complete ricks and talks nonsense. And I think that's one of the many reasons why I started this Let's Nail Nationalist LIE series, because there are so many of them, and I don't think they're permeating through to people who vote for them, sadly.
Well, I just wonder, it's one of these things, it's like elite. So isn't it one of these, elite meetings, all the elites meet with each other, and it seems divorced from normal, from what normal people's lives. I mean, we have here Murdo Fraser, grandstanding First Minister, should focus on problems at home. And it's not as though there's no problems at home. There are millions of problems, and we're going to come on to that in just a second. So it's just this idea. I wonder that, she wants to be part of this elite, the global elite. Yeah. And I think that many people are against that kind of idea. Even in that article there, she's pictured there, and, and up in the podium and all that. I mean, some people on one side might say, oh, well, she's doing Scotland proud. And the other side are like, well, why is she even there? She's a regional administrator. And I think we have to, she's there to distract to some extent from the fact that she can't do stuff at home. And she's also there to provide a handy thing. I was quite appalled to see when she was, basically talking against Rishi Sunak at this event. And, it's like, can you imagine another country going there that the head of Germany goes to the thing, and then somebody from Bavaria is going there, not without a ticket, going, that guy's rubbish, or that woman's rubbish. It's like, I mean, come on, that's not the way things should be done. I don't think that's right. I think. Do you have any thoughts on that, Alan?
Yeah, I think somebody needs to. She gets away with, I keep saying these things that they claim, and I don't know if you saw, there was an article by in Think Scotland today. There's the in Case for Independence. Gordon McIntyre Kemp's book. And it goes on about Scotland's got 25% of Europe's wind.
Oh yes. I talk about that later on tonight. Yeah, yes. Exactly that.
Yeah. And that okay. Well, that meeting that we did, I was talking about. I said, "How on earth do you measure wind?" well, somebody's gone and done it, and if you know about it and you're going to talk about it, I wouldn't steal your thunder.
No, no,
But it's
no,
not
no, go on,
25%.
please. I don't mention that, so please go on,
All right.
Alan, genuinely.
Well, what they've actually worked out is that if it's got any percentage at all, it's around about 3 or 4% of UK's wind, Europe's wind.
Right.
But I don't know how do you get some giant balloon and capture it and then weigh it?
Well, I think it's the percentage of the wind that's used. I think it's the percentage generation of that it generates of the UK or something like that. Anyway, I'm sure David will sort us out at the end. Okay, so we're talking about things at home. There's a few things here. Let's see. Good. So okay for time. Okay, so last week, the inquiry into the Ferguson scandal. Right. Okay. This is the kind of thing she did this at the Ferguson scandal, Ferguson inquiry, and then she ran off to Egypt. So Craig Hoy started by asking her if he was going to tell the truth this time. Let's hope I've got this clip.
The detail, I just want to seek some reassurance about the nature of the evidence you're going to give today. You are intending to answer transparently and truthfully. Your memory won't fail you, and you won't need to come back under the cover of darkness and correct the official report.
You might want to expand on what you mean. All evidence I give before a committee is as transparent as I can be. I'm trying to be very clear with the committee about the decisions that I'm speaking about that I had knowledge of at the time versus those that I now have knowledge of but wasn't part. So I'm being as open and transparent with the committee as possible. It's for the committee to decide after I give evidence if there are.
It just waffle, goes on and on and on as usual. It can't give a straight answer like, yeah, of course I'm here to tell the truth. That's what I'm here for. It's just, there's always a clause and then a sub-clause and so on. Anyway, Craig Hoy didn't like her answers very much, and he made a claim that Sturgeon has broken the Ministerial Code, which I'm not sure if I actually have that yet. Yep, I have that tweet right here. Here he goes. Today I've written to the First Minister raising concerns about possible breach of Ministerial Code. Nicola Sturgeon has claimed throughout the ferry fiasco that she's nothing to hide and is eager to be transparent. Now is her chance to prove that. The whole thing revolves around a meeting that she had, perhaps multiple meetings, that every meeting that a minister has, a Scottish Government minister has to have a private secretary or a civil servant, I think, is attached to it, for the reason basically to take notes and take minutes and so on. And everyone who is at the meeting has to be, has to be, okay, we've got the thing here. A private secretary official should be present for all discussions relating to government business and keep the minutes and all that. Excuse me, get an extra page here. So the question here is, does it matter if she's broken the Ministerial Code again? And is Mr. Hoy going to actually get anywhere with this action, David?
Well, we know that she broke the Ministerial Code when she gave evidence previously, and it was more or less, I think the judgment was that she had done so, but inadvertently, not deliberately, which I wasn't aware was a mitigation of breaking the Ministerial Code. Either you do or you don't. If you remember in the past, Wendy Alexander leaving office for something very, very trivial. There was another, was it Henry McLeish who left over a taxi bill or something like that? So whereas you're talking here about hundreds of millions of pounds and false evidence being given or false statements being made, and nothing seems to stick. So yeah, I wouldn't surprise me at all if it is proven that she has broken the Ministerial Code. Will she pay the penalty for it? Almost certainly not, because it just seems these committees, Scottish government committees, are always somehow leaning towards maintaining the status quo in terms of looking after Sturgeon and the SNP. So no, I can't say I've got any great confidence in justice being done if and when she is proven to have broken the Ministerial Code, sadly.
Yeah, Allan Jack there mentioned that she had a special advisor with her. Special advisor, though, isn't a civil servant, a proper civil servant. It just seems like they know they can get away with it, so they do it. So you've got these meetings that aren't minuted. They don't know who's at them, don't know what the decisions were. There's a complete lack of transparency. And then she comes to the meeting, she comes there and she says, of course, I'm going to be transparent.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, well, it's not. The time for transparency actually isn't now. The time for transparency was then.
Absolutely.
right? When you did the act, when you did the thing, you're supposed to show what you're doing, show you're working. And then, so I think automatically that should be a fail, to be honest, because it's not a matter of the fact that it doesn't exist should be, I mean, it should have proper censure. And this is a thing we should get certainly from the UK government. I mean, why isn't it a UK government inquiry? Why is it Scottish?
Quite right.
Scottish Parliament inquiry. You got any thoughts on this particular issue, Alan?
Well, so that or the Scottish Parliament needs to adopt the same kind of processes that they have in Parliament. I just think that it's the same. I remember I was speaking to an MSP. This is the year before the salmon inquiry, and he confidently, this is a Labour MSP, confidently predicted this would be the end of sturgeon. And I almost knew the way he was saying it. If you're going to rely on these things to be the end of sturgeon, where what they need to do is start winning elections and getting the end of sturgeon. And of course it wasn't, and they just can't get to the bottom of it. And nobody, I don't know what they could do to get this, to get sturgeon put to the sword in this. But surely one of them would be if the three leaders of the political parties, the opposition parties, got together and held some big press conference to say, look, we're walking out this Parliament unless this is properly handled, or something that gets us beyond the UK and Scotland in terms of news. It's never going to change. They're always going to get away with it.
Yeah, it really does needs oversight. I mean, they're basically marking their own homework, and there's no accountability. And I think, and you would think that if they wanted to run Scotland better, they would make it as accountable as possible, a robust Parliament. But this only makes people like myself think, well, if this is the way they behave when there is even some kind of checks and balances, and I mean there's no real checks and balances. I mean, obviously the objective of getting independence is to get more power for yourself. That's what it is, right? So if what are they going to be like with more power? It's going to be even more abuse. So I think that's really I think that's a very challenging situation for.
Well, I mean, the classic cliche. It is a cliche, but it's very apt. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it always happens. There has never been a political leader who hasn't become prone to just getting stuff wrong after too long in, and after consolidating power more and more and more. And the SNP have done it to an unbelievable extent. And if they carry on doing it, there is going to be no question of any check for them at all. So yeah, it's something we have to fight against.
Yeah, I just wonder. I don't think though that the opposition parties can do that type of walkout. I mean, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds that it would be great if they did. Of course, we'd all be happy for that. But I just can't see it happening. Especially, the Labour certainly wouldn't want to do that with the. I would have to be very carefully handled. This is not about politics. This is about accountability. And I don't know, maybe it just comes down to, as someone said, that Holyrood has to be put into special measures at some point if things are not handled properly.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing that was interesting during the Tory leadership debate was Rishi Sunak was going about we've got to stop devolve and forget.
That's good.
And if they do that, if they start getting more involved in it, which it sounds to me like they will, or I hope they will, that might change it. As there's oversight, as we said. I mean, this COVID inquiry has got a Scottish element to it, as you know.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see if they come out with any different conclusions. If they've got the same remit and they're looking at the same areas, I don't know. So we might not be able to compare apples with apples. But it'd be interesting to see how that.
Well, that's good. I mean, certainly we can't fault any initiative that tries to put them under more scrutiny, because when they are scrutinised, they fall apart. Their claims fall apart, and their incompetence shows almost straight away. We're going to do a section. We're just going to continue on to this with about the benefits agency cost overrun. We're going to skip past that. We're going to be back in a second. We're going to be talking. Alan's going to take us through the House of Commons debate that happened last week. So. Right, so we're going to have a kind of a free discussion on this based around these videos, actually. So first one, do you want me just to play it, Alan, or do you want to talk about the debate and what was going on, first of all?
Well, As I said to you, I was in Germany the last 2 weeks, and we caught COVID, so we're kind of housebound and all that. And I'm negative as of yesterday morning. So we're watching a lot of telly and a lot of things we don't normally watch. So we watched debate night on the Wednesday night, and I was really disappointed. The SNP had 3 people on it. The Pro UK had 2 people on it, and it was the usual thing. We've got a mandate, so why can't we have a referendum? And every small country in the world can do it. Why can't Scotland? And I was really frustrated by the 2 pro-UK MSPs who didn't seem to have an answer. For example, well, your mandate, how you got a mandate when you've got 31% of Scotland's 4.3 million voters voting for you last year?
Yeah, there's many arguments to the mandate.
Greens, you only got 34,000 votes. How can that be a mandate? Stuff like that. And they just don't do it. And then on Thursday, we watched, just before that debate was going on in Scotland on Wednesday afternoon, there was a 6-hour debate called by SNP on Scottish independence in the House of Parliament. Yes. And so we ended up watching that. And what struck me was the SNP Alba types down there and independents were fighting amongst themselves about currency, for example. They were interrupting each other at cases. And people like Ian Murray and Alister Jack give a masterclass on how to do it, how to put them down, have the facts at disposal, despite, especially Ian Murray, the one Labour MP and also the Shadow Secretary of State, him and his assistants must be up to their foreheads and work all day, still managed to have all the facts in front of them and able to recite it. And
I thought it was quite good. Well, first of all, we'll have a look at Alister Jack's part here. Okay, here we go.
I fear ferries will float before we do. Because rather than deal with what actually matters to the vast majority of Scots, growing the economy, creating jobs, the members opposite want to talk about the Scottish Government's independence papers. I will make some progress, Mr. Speaker. Papers that have provoked scorn from respected economic experts and even from high-profile independence campaigners. Mr. Deputy Speaker, one prominent nationalist, and I apologise in advance for the unparliamentary language, but I quote, referred to the recent economy paper as utter pish.
Brilliant.
Right, okay, so that was the first clip. It's quite, we've noticed this in the past, though, that we've seen people like Penny Mordaunt in particular really like to slap the gnats around in Westminster, really give them a hard time. And you just wonder, why can't they do that, as you say, like on debate night in other places? You need to get arguments, robust arguments, and say, right, okay, if they mention mandate, there's 3 things you can say. It's like you need a training program for MSP, Conservative and Labour MSPs, exactly. To say that's the 3 things. Okay, and then here's another. If they say, other small countries can do well, here's 5 answers to that in diminishing order, whatever one's important. It's not really that complicated, and we should be able to slap them back and just say. And in fact, what we're resorting to some extent is to say, like Alister Jack said there, it's their own people are against it, which is actually quite a good argument, I have to say. Your own people say it's a load of utter pish, then that's fair enough as well. We mentioned, what's his name? What's it called? What's his name now?
Who you think?
Ian Martin.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so is that his name? Yeah, okay. So here's the clip from him.
Deputy Speaker, if they won't listen to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, why won't they listen to their own people on their own side? And it was being quoted already, because Robin MacAlpine of the Commonweal Foundation, which they used to quote vociferously in here, and who campaigned alongside the First Minister for independence in 2014, and actually campaigned along many members who are currently sitting here, I'll have to give way if you want to tell me about Robert MacAlpine.
I think it's important to point out to
this is a Hanvey, Neil Hanvey,
Shadow Minister, that there's not one blueprint or one proposal for Scotland. That those are decisions that the people of Scotland will take after independence, and they are propositions, and there are other propositions on the table, and that is what a democracy is.
What a bunch of nonsense. I think. What do you think of that, Alan? What's your comments on that part?
Well, you know, I want to I forget the word, preempt myself, but Zoomer of the week. I mean, it just gave it all away. Yeah. Their argument is we're not going to, you know, their defence on not having this a fixed common platform anymore is, well, just vote for us and we'll sort out after it, and then we'll tell you if you're going to have the pound or you're going to get into Europe or whatever. But we're not going to tell you beforehand because actually we can't agree amongst ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. We talked about a little bit of this last week. It's like they've given up the pretense of having any actual real figures. I was actually quite surprised that they actually committed to the hard border in this one. Normally we just hand wave and just say, well, no, there's no, you know, there's that's for the future, you know. But they actually said there's going to be, you know, a hard border, you know, two points, two crossings, as it were, which of course we all know is nonsense. But I mean, just in general, they've gone from having quite detailed plans to getting more and more vague plans. And I mean, well, that's, you know, it's this idea they're just winging it, right?
Oh, exactly, yeah. And it came out, and again, the problem with that is, you know, I don't know how many people watch the UK Parliament show, but in Scotland, if there was more than a couple hundred people watched that would be it. You never see it on BBC Scotland Tea Time News. No. It's not on our website yet. We're doing it tonight, thankfully. But
well, I didn't notice. I mean, they had this debate, a 6-hour debate in independence. Perhaps it shows that people aren't really that interested.
Well, that's that as well.
You know, that it wasn't in there. The final clip I've got from this is another one from Ian Murray, where he talks about
MacAlpine, and he said of the economic proposition for independence that we have to get off this mad bus of the First Minister's independence perspectives. He said, pick your reason, and I quote, "It could be because you think the government should have a lender of last resort. It could be because you realise they have no economic plan for Scotland. It might be because they failed to come up with any answers on trade or borders. Or I quote, and the Secretary of State did it earlier, it could be because the whole thing is utter pish. Pick your reason, but for God's sakes, get off this mad bus." Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Tories have lost all economic credibility by crashing the UK economy. And on the same day the Tories reversed their catastrophic mini-budget, the SNP produced a paper that should have been entitled "Hold My Beer."
Yeah, well, there we go. So, well, I mean, this is the thing. I was quite surprised by how good Ian Murray was in this debate. But I think more people should be able to see it. You know, it wasn't highlighted, as you say, it wasn't highlighted by the media. And this whole thing, Alister, I mean, it is kind of weird, isn't it? You think that they would be interested, just as a proper parliamentary debate. I mean, although it's not binding or whatever, but there was a proper parliamentary debate on this, and there was hardly any headlines about it at all. There was hardly anything in there, and there was hardly anything on social media about it as well. So I think it's really good that you brought this to attention. Do you have any final things to say on that?
Yeah, the other interesting thing is what Ian Murray said at the end about the Tories have screwed it all up and all this of it. And he was referring to what happened the last few weeks with Liz Truss. And, you know, Rishi Sunak sort of predicted it would happen. It happened. And what that's done for both the Labour Party and for the SNPs and anybody else thinking of taking over government is this whole issue of how financing and running an economy, you know, it's kind of blown away all the modern monetary theory stuff.
Yes.
Although I still see, you know, Leah Barnett, what's her name that writes in the papers? Leah Gunn Barrett. I see her.
Not sure.
She's still writing in the Herald and the Scotsman in letters pages about, you know, all a government's got to do is print money. But I don't think you'll hear, when he's saying that, it'll make the independence campaign a lot harder.
Well, so perhaps Liz Truss did us all a favour. There's the takeaway there.
Brexit as a difficult thing. Well, there's two things. One is people can now say Skexit is going to be Brexit on steroids. Absolutely. Which is one example from the UK. The other example from the UK is what happened lately with this whole financial miasma for a while, you know? They can't forget that.
No, it's impossible now. I mean, and to some extent, it's a bit weird seeing, as I mentioned it before, seeing Labour particularly, who are saying, well, the markets, we have to work with the markets, which is a bit strange. All right, good segment there, and I think that was quite interesting. I mean, I saw those clips earlier. I was like, oh, this is really good stuff here. Well done, Ian Murray. Excuse me for making a mistake with your name. I was just away for a second there. Okay, and we'll be back in a second, and Dave's going to talk about the big nationalist lie of the week. If I can find the thing. Here we go.
Okay, dokie. Right. I'll keep this brief, as I know we haven't got an awful lot of time left, but here we go. So today's big nationalist lie is topical because it's been all over the media today, and that's the SNP's claim that Scotland is self-sufficient in renewable energy. And it takes several forms, this lie, each one intended to support the nationalist myth that Scotland is both rich in energy resources and that Scotland is somehow being robbed of the wealth it should be receiving as a result of having all this energy. But as always with nationalists, the stats don't match the barrage of SNP soundbites, which are frankly lies. So this one, two parts. Firstly, the First Minister told MSPs last month that Scotland's net energy consumption is already provided by renewable energy sources, which is completely false. When challenged on this, she was forced to correct it because it's not true. Scotland produces a great deal of energy from renewable resources, but much of it is exported and not consumed in Scotland. It's not true to say this at all. The correction from the First Minister was very deliberate. It read, oh yes, the equivalent of 98.8% of Scotland's consumption is provided by renewables. Now, that's very slanted, if you like, because it was a non-correction, if you like, because you would say, oh yeah, of course, 98.8%, so, we produce more than enough for ourselves. The impression being given that Scotland has got more than enough energy if we didn't have to give it all to England, because this is the falsehood that these guys.
Yes, okay. I see where you're
going with this. So her correction was clearly intended to feed this lie. And it looks now like the correction will itself have to be corrected because the figure is nothing like 98.8%.
Was that wasn't the correction she did to change the report?
No, that was a different correction. She's doing this all behind the scenes. I think I forget what the subject matter of that was, but yeah, she admitted that she had misspoken, and so she got the official record to be changed rather than go back to Parliament and say, sorry, I got
that was this one here. Here, Sturgeon criticised for Orwellian energy statistics.
That's it.
She claimed about renewable energy thing. That's a 98.9%. That is 98.9%.
Yep. And the UK Statistics Authority think the true figure of Scotland's energy consumption provided by renewables is not 98.8%. It's close to 63%. In fact, that's not even consumption. It's the production.
Well, that's when but it's like that must be like an average thing when the wind's blowing,
Quite. Exactly.
It doesn't blow all the time.
If the weather does what it's told. So and just to back this up a little, Allan mentioned earlier the additional lie which has been put forth, saying that Scotland possesses 25% of Europe's offshore wind potential. And this claim was made first by Alex Salmond. Kate Forbes repeated it this year. Ian Blackford repeated it, and it even came up on an SNP website, the SNP website last week, or last month rather. Whereas These Islands report dismisses this figure and puts the true figure closer to 4%. So when challenged on the accuracy of this statistic, the Scottish Government admitted this figure was first used in a publication in 2010. It was accurate at the time, but it should be re-examined now. In other words, it's false. It's complete rubbish. They've been trotting this out for 12 years. It no longer applies.
Well, it's part of the whole thing, isn't it? As you said, it's part of we're better than England, and we've got more resources. And then someone mentioned there, English are stealing our wind. That type of thing. It's just to build this type of grievance, really, against. I get, based on this virtue signalling. You're virtual signalling in multiple levels. Not only are you making these turbines, but every turbine is a stake into the heart of the English system, basically.
Exactly. So, yes. The problem, of course, is for the SNP, people are seeing that they're lying about this stuff and they're simply not telling the truth. So what are they additionally lying about then, guys, which isn't coming to the public's attention? So very, very concerning. But it's clear that it seems evident to me that they are building this sense of grievance so that people have this general idea that, yeah, if we're independent, we wouldn't have to give all that stuff to England anymore. We could keep all this. Completely
or it's either or greed, it's like we've got so much wind power that we can feed the world, as it were. And
lead the world, quite.
It's a bit like that. We're Scottish supremacism as best. Now, of course, we all know this is that Nicola Sturgeon produced enough hot air to certainly run a few of those wind turbines. But thank you very much, David, for that big nationalist lie of the week. Very good. We will be back in a second with, it's the highlight of the week, actually. First of all, I'm supposed to go through this list of things that you can do to support the show. But you can just do one thing. If you can, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is the number one thing we'd like to join the chat, especially if you're watching this from Twitter, where you can't. All right, coming up, it is going to be Zoomer of the Week. What have we got this week? Right, Alan's going first here with the Zoomer, and I believe it's Hanvey again, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's just the one thing that you didn't play. One of the bits that was on the debate was he was that bit where he was talking about this is a democracy and all the rest of it, and he was coming up with some weird
I've got it. Don't worry. Do you want me to play it? Let's play it.
The bit where Ian reminds him about his.
He made the suggestion that democracy is allowed to prevail in Ireland, and he supports it because it keeps the peace. Is he therefore suggesting, and I hope he's not, that there needs to be violence? No, it's important. I fled Northern Ireland when I was a 7-year-old boy because of sectarianism. Is that really the point he's making for democracy to prevail?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm going to treat that intervention with the contempt it deserves and just completely and utterly ignore it. And if that's the kind of argument we're getting from the Alba party, who was elected as an SNP Member of Parliament, and the people of his constituency in Kirkcaldy and Cowdenbeath should reflect very seriously on what they do at the next general election.
Point of order, Mr. Hanvey.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I just want to give the Shadow Minister the opportunity to correct the record. I was not elected as an SNP MP. I was elected as an independent MP.
Yes, he did correct the record because I forgot he was suspended for anti-Semitism, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I'm put the public record of why he was thrown out of the Scottish National Party. But I think that second contribution probably sums up the disdain of why I would not accept the first one about violence in Northern Ireland. But
yes, well, I think that's quite high quality Zoomerism.
Well, I would say, and between that and the one about this, we'll let you know after independence what our policies are. Between these two things. I mean, how do these people get elected? I just don't understand.
Well, how was he elected? He says as an independent, right? So was he actually elected to? He was elected as an SNP.
He was an SNP candidate. I remember this at the time because it was one of the Conservative candidates up in Aberdeen. I forget his name now. He got he apparently the dugout that 12 years before he'd written something about the Holocaust, a sort of rational view, did it happen or not, and came at the conclusion it must have happened. But in the meantime, he said some stuff. Anyway, he had to stand down. Ryan Houghton, his name. And at the same time, Neil Hanvey came out with anti-Semitism remarks as well. And yeah, it was, I can't remember how it happened, but he had the SNP stopped him being a candidate. He went as an independent. He got elected as an independent. And then he joined Alba when Alba was formed.
Another chance. Right, okay, that was a very good candidate for Zoomer of the Week. Next up, it is going to be me. Right, I had quite a long thing here, but I'll just cut it down a bit because I know we're short. My Zoomer is going to be Michell Thomson, who decided it'd be a good idea to not only wear a white poppy, but one with a yes logo in the middle of it. Difficult to describe how crass this is. But here, SNP, I've got a picture actually. Oh, there is a picture. Hold on. There we go. Picture. There she is, with the poppy, with the yes and the thing. Now, Annie Wells, who is a Conservative MSP, said, a poppy is a symbol of remembrance as we commemorate those who paid the ultimate price defending our freedoms. Michelle Thompson's crass yes poppy stunt is appalling. She must apologise immediately. And Bruce Wilson, who's a Scottish Lib Dems veteran spokesman and a former Royal Marine captain, said it was an insult to veterans. Seems there's nothing the Nationalists won't slap a yes sticker on. David, you know much about this white poppy thing?
Yeah, the white poppy is often worn around this time of year by those who, shall we say, oppose the British state with their political views. It's intended, supposedly, to take the blood out of the poppy to symbolise opposition to war and the casualties that arise from war. So in the past, guys like Corbyn have worn it, for example, as a white poppy. It's something he wants to commemorate the dead, but wants to take the, if you like, the armed forces part out of it. But it was most famously used after the year after the independence referendum by an extremist SNP group called Seeds of the Gale, who did something in Bathgate, and they had white poppies, and I think they vandalised that, a memorial. Ridiculous. But this is what always happens with nationalists, and particularly Irish and Scottish nationalists. They attempt to portray the poppy, the red poppy, as a symbol of support for the British Armed Forces. And of course, in Ireland, the nationalists have a major issue with the British Armed Forces. But as with all claims made by these people, are completely untrue. The red poppy, as Annie well said, symbolises the fallen, and it's a plea for world peace moving forward. There's nothing remotely offensive about the poppy. It's an absolute disgrace.
Just trying to make an issue out of stuff. Anyway, Thomson later claimed, get this, unfortunately, this poppy being made of paper came apart at the weekend. Upon arrival at the committee, she asked, and this is what someone was explaining, one of her special advisors.
Yeah.
Upon arrival at the committee, she asked a colleague for another white poppy and received one, but without a safety pin. She used her yes badge to affix it prior to obtaining another safety pin after the committee. No offence was intended. Well, so it was either stupidity or malevolence. Well done, Michelle. You are my Zoomer of the week. Coming up, it's going to be David's.
My nomination for Zoomer is leader of Glasgow's SNP Council, Susan Aitken. Yes, good old Susan, the woman who believes Glasgow isn't dirty, it just needs a spruce up. The woman who has also dismissed Glasgow refuse collectors' concerns over rodent infestation by saying, well, there have been one, maybe two incidents involving minor contact with a rat. Minor contact. So, Susan, let me tell you, there's a third example for you today when a rat was pictured jumping from a bin that was being emptied in Glasgow, in your city. And the video can be seen on my Twitter timeline if you want to have a look, guys. I tweeted it earlier on. So where's Susan while all this is happening? Where is Susan while the people of Glasgow deal with the cost of living crisis, sky-high energy bills, rail strikes, vermin infestation, and unbelievably the threat of nurses striking? Where is she? You guessed it, she's with the First Minister and Liz Lloyd and various other hangers-on in Egypt as an uninvited attendee at the COP27 conference. So luckily we've been spared thus far, at least, any photos of Susan in Egypt, but we have seen photos of...
Oh, I think at least if she's there, you can just get a photo.
Exactly, yeah, quite, exactly. But you know what this reminds me of? I tweeted this last night. Sturgeon desperately tried to make new friends with people at an event at which she's not even invited. It reminds me of Celtic fans trying to buddy up with Real Madrid fans in George Square before the Champions League final at Hampden in 2002. And just like the delegates in Egypt, who are clearly bewildered at meeting Nicola Sturgeon, the Real Madrid fans had no idea who these Celtic fans were and why they were accosting them while brandishing Catalan flags, because Celtic fans are big supporters of Catalan independence, yet they were going up to Real Madrid fans saying, hey, we're on your side. Oh, God, it's just pathetic. So for a failure to read the room yet again, for blatantly using climate concerns as an excuse for a paid trip to Egypt in November, and for a failure to acknowledge the appalling state of Glasgow on her watch, Susan Aitken is my nomination for Zoomer.
Oh, yeah, no, it's rain, you know, anything to get away from it, you know.
Exactly.
Okay, Alan, you have the choice. 3 Zoomers. Which one would you choose? You can choose your own.
What was your one again, Mark?
Mine was Michelle Thompson, yeah, in the poppy.
Michelle, yeah. Well, I wouldn't vote for my own one, right? So I'll vote for the boss's one. I think Michelle Thompson as well. But I remember further back in Michelle Thompson's career, when she was involved in that mortgage scandal. And all So I think she deserves being a Zoomer of the Week, to be honest with you.
Right, okay, she is the Zoomer of the Week. Yes, someone, as I said, it's either malevolence or stupidity, and neither of those is a particularly good option. Right, thanks for that, Alan. Okay, we're going to be closing up the show now. Thank you all for watching. We will be back with another show next Wednesday, November 16th, at our usual time of 7 p.m. This show went by incredibly fast, I have to say. Yeah. I mean, for us anyway. Hopefully it was good for you watching as well.
Indeed. As always, thanks, donors, for your support for making the show possible. Thank you once again.
A big thank you to UK Union Voice, United Against Separation, and all the other pages that support us and groups as well, including Alan's as well. And it says here, Mary. Also, I'll talk for Mary. Thank you for all your comments. I just want to thank Alan for taking the time to be with us today at short notice as well. And thank you for your participation. We've enjoyed listening to you as we do always on the show. If you do have a chance, please go and visit Scotland Matters website and see what they're up to. They're up to a lot of stuff. And yeah, very interesting. Always doing stuff there. Right. Okay. So that's that. Leave you with the thought of the week. To paraphrase Churchill, British state is the worst form of government possible, apart from the alternatives.
Apart from all the alternatives, he's right. Yeah, quite right. Yes.
So it's good night from me.
Good night from me. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you.
Thanks for the comments, guys. See you next week, everyone. Cheers.
Okay,
bye.